from what I have been able to gather, you've had this show for years, and from what I've seen you guys go into the forest people, and that's about it. I don't really know too much else. So how did this, I know this sounds like a generic question, but like, how did this all start for you?
Well, I think a lot of people like us who, get into these adventures, when we were young, we thought, I remember thinking, what am I doing here? Why am I not like these people? Why am I not thinking like these people? I felt like I was like a stranger, even in my own family, because they cared about stuff that I really didn't care about. And I just had a different kind of mindset and thought process, I guess. And I think a lot of people who are who are in this endeavor are like that. Maybe even you. But so I always had a lifelong fascination with Sasquatch. I would go on the internet and look them up and whatever. And every time I'm from British Columbia, Canada,
Mm.
so every time I would be driving down, the roads and the forest and whatever, I'd always be looking to see if I could see them. Always keeping my eyes open. But the thing is I had a really acute interest in them, and that's not by accident. That's because I've been connected with them for a long, long time. As I've come to find out. So it wasn't an accident that I had an acute interest in them. And I think that's also common for a lot of other people, whether it's Sasquatch or aliens or whatever it is. And so one day I was walking my little dog and I heard some of you talking to your dogs. So you must be a dog lover too.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a door now, fortunately, but before that, they would just come in, and especially around dinner time, they would circle around the little podcast table and just be like, "Come on, let's go,
Yeah.
come on." Yeah.
So do I. And I've got a door as well because my dog, he always comes on every show. He jumps on my lap and, oh, here's Charlie, the star of the show. And he's quite a character. But anyway, so one day I was walking my other dogs that I had at that time, and this was in 2012, in a place called Pitt Meadows, British Columbia. I was walking along a dike, and off to my right was beautiful mountains like they have in British Columbia. And all of a sudden, I got mind speak in my head: go to the mountains. And that was the first time I ever had mind speak or anything like that. It just said, go to the mountains. And I just knew it was a Sasquatch. I didn't even know him. You've heard about, knowings and stuff, how we
Oh
just
yeah.
know stuff and we don't know how we, but that's really developed, since then. But anyway, uh, so at that point, I just started getting connected to all the people that would enhance my journey. And at times, I could enhance theirs too. And, there's a lot of stories around that, but I met all kinds of people, including Tom Cantrell and Arla Colette Williams, a guy called Randy Brisson, the First Nations guy here, who I'm eternally grateful for. We became really good friends, and we were going out in the woods in my area like all the time. So anyway, one of the first guy I really reached out to that I saw on, the Bigfoot Encounters, Bobby Short's old
I,
group. Do you remember that?
yeah, I think I am familiar.
She passed on, but she had a great page with all kinds of sightings and reports. And if I recall, it was pretty open-minded too, because, which is good for me, because I don't think that the Sasquatch rule for me is anything about evidence. It's about teaching, student teacher kind of thing, which we can get into. But anyway, so I saw on the Bobby Short site a guy called Randy Brisson, who was lived right in my town, and actually it turned out just 10 minutes up the street from me. And his son and him have seen Sasquatch tracks in a local forest, like really, really close to where I live. And I thought, wow, that's cool. I mean, they're right here. So I sent him a friend request, and after about 2 weeks, he accepted it. We started talking, and he's very protective of the area because, he respects them. He doesn't want to bring any Tom, Dick, and Harry in there.
Yeah.
But we developed a friendship and a trust, and he took me in there. And the very first day we went in there, as soon as we got out of the vehicle, started walking up the trail, he pointed to something on the ground. He says, "Do you see that?" And I looked down and I saw these little sticks on the ground that seemed to form some kind of message or something, or they had a design that did not look natural to me. Like it didn't look like they just felt that way, and ended up calling them glyphs. And it's weird because ever since that day, for about 6 years after that, and even to this day, well, not so much now, but even though I'm still connected with glyphs and I've still learned a lot with glyphs and a lot of great stories with glyphs, for the first 5 or 6 years when I went in the forest, there could have been Sasquatch walking right beside me. I wouldn't have probably seen them because I was constantly looking on the forest floor for these glyphs that turned out to be messages. And I found out at one point that they were personal messages from me. They were
Yeah.
communicating with me through the glyphs. And how I found that out one day is I had a gifting tree that I maintained and a lot of great experiences there, a lot of funny stuff. But anyway, I was gifting them there. And then one day I went there and there was about a dozen glyphs at the base of this tree. And then that's when I knew. I said, "Oh my God, they're communicating with me through these." So that was kind of like my first experiences. Oh, and also we also heard some really cool wood knots and stuff the first day I went out with them. And it just continued from there. I mean, it's never stopped, right? But just amazing. And they called me to go to the mountains, and there was a reason for it. It wasn't just, "Hey, come to the mountains and check it out." They wanted to connect with me, and I've basically become their student, and
Mm.
their voice in some ways too, because at one time via Mindspeak they told me, "You represent us everywhere you go," and that was on the way to a conference, I think. And those are humbling words. When you hear
Yeah.
that, those are humbling words, and I took them to heart. And I never exaggerate or embellish, or I guess that's the same thing. But I always try to represent them in the best light, and never as monsters. They're a people. They're a
Yeah.
people. They're a very advanced people. They're a very high vibration people, and at least the ones I know. And they're like family, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, at this point. That interview that I did with Vic Kundiff, that's actually what he named the episode, and I had no idea. But he named it "They Feel Like Family" to me because it's true. It's the love that you feel from these people is so intense that it's like I've told so many people that they can often find me in the woods in the middle of the night just like crying
Yeah,
because the love frequency is so intense, and when you connect with them and they send that to you, it's like you start shuddering almost because your body can't handle it. It's a very intense
yeah.
thing.
Many times when I've driven in the woods or whatever, or even just at home, because you don't have to be in the woods. When they connect
Yeah.
with you, I usually feel them every interview I do.
Mm,
On the Port Beach, I feel the energy coming in, and they're giving me a confirmation, like, "Yes, we like what you're talking about," and it feels like all energized and across the chest, and it just tingly or whatever. But
yeah.
I remember times driving into their home and into the forest there a few times, and just breaking down and absolute weeping and tears rolling down my cheeks, even because the love and the greeting was so strong. It was just like instantly from la di da di da to like, and it's so beautiful, like you said, it's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish everybody could experience that, and that's one of the reasons I have the show and talk about them, is because I really want people to experience it,
Mm,
because it's life changing. You know, it
yeah.
really is.
It
Yeah.
definitely is. And it's such a departure from the majority of what you find on YouTube right now and other platforms as far as podcasts, where it's like the fear factor is turned up, and it's there's so many stories that are like, Hunter goes out in the woods and is terrorized by a giant hairy beast, and it's I mean, sure, maybe that does happen sometimes, but for the most, I've never experienced anything like that. And I've hardly ever heard any stories like that. Most of the experiences that I've heard about are ones that are similar to what you and I are talking about. They're beings that are trying to get through to us and trying to connect with us to help us learn and remember who we are because, you
Exactly.
know, it's time.
Well, there's a couple things behind that, or to talk about in relation to that. First of all, if I talked about them as monsters and did monster stories or whatever, that would be disrespecting them greatly. and they probably they wouldn't be having the connection that they have with me. But
Mm.
the other thing is I would have a whole lot more subscribers,
Yeah.
which I don't care about. But I would have
Yeah.
a whole lot more subscribers. But I'm not going to talk about family like that, right?
Mm-mm. Not at all.
So anyway, the females can have a very pleasant flowery scent
Mm.
to them, and I also think that they can turn that scent off and on, because I've also smelt the unpleasant kind of male kind of thing that people talk about.
Mm.
But when they've been right around me, cloaked and walking right around me, but it was just a whiff, and they just seemed to turn it on and off like, "Hi, we here," just to let me know, because there's really nothing that you can mistake that for, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I don't think that that smell that people describe necessarily is because they smell. I think it could be to chase people away. It could be to let people know they're there, or for other reasons. But that's my experience anyway. Or maybe my guys just take a lot of baths or something.
But
Those kind of little things, like the little subtle things that you pay attention to, are the things that reveal who it was, right? The
yeah.
culprit, so to speak, right? The little subtle kind of things like that, like a bitten apple put back in the tree or whatever. But anyway, one time I was walking along the trail going back to my car, and all of a sudden I had a knowing that Raja Say, the daughter of RE, that's my clan leader, who
Mm.
is actually like 12 and a half feet tall. This guy's
Oh
huge.
wow.
But he's also got a huge heart. Like, I would trust him more than basically any human in the woods, like his family, right? But anyway,
Mm.
big heart and big size. But anyway, his daughter, I just knew, and she was a teacher for me too. I just knew that it was her standing off to my right in the bush. All of a sudden, I just had a knowing. And all of a sudden, I got hit up with this wave of energy that I called the love zap, and I instantly started crying right away. I instantly remember thinking, this is from the universal God source or whatever. This is from the universal source, and I knew that we were all connected. I knew, no judgment, no division. It just is. No need to answer or ask any questions. Um, I felt like the smallest butterfly or any kind of being was worthy of respect, and that I shouldn't put myself above it, because I'm just separating myself from the connection of everything. When you do that, and that's what people do, and they move further away from who we really are when they try to elevate themselves above others. And
Yeah.
it was what else? There was a bunch of revelation. Oh, and there's a big download of information that I'm still probably unpackaging to this day, but
Mm.
just amazing stuff. It was just a universal knowing, and a lot of the teachings or whatever that I learned from them have developed from that, and a lot of the stuff I put in my book is related to that too. But I just remember I was going, oh my, oh my, oh my, and that's all I could say, and it was just like tears, and it was like the most beautiful gift I could ever
Yeah.
imagine.
I can I can imagine. I've definitely had some similar instances. Have you Do you feel like you've always been a spiritual person? Have you always had spiritual leanings?
I was always different, like I said,
Mhm.
as a kid. Um, yeah, I didn't understand why people treat people like they do, why they would hurt somebody for money or greed, or I could never understand any of that. So I think I had the foundation of what they've been working with me on and enhanced or whatever. I definitely had that, but they've certainly opened my heart and my eyes and my spirituality up exponentially. But I think I think part of me was like that for sure. And of course, I always loved animals. I remember, like, they had me. They were teaching me, because they're healers, right? The Sasquatch, and they were teaching me how to heal, and I've done some healings on people that just like, what? Like, really? Did
Mm.
I do? I don't think I facilitate. I don't really give myself the credit for doing it, but they work through me. I guess is what I want to say. And I remember when I was a little kid, I just, out of the blue, I said, I can heal. And maybe just a young teenager, maybe even younger, and I don't even know why I thought that.
Hmm.
And then when I met the Sasquatch years later, they started having me do that. Um, Yeah, and have some just amazing like miracle stuff, like like stuff you hear like sounds like miracles that I
Hmm.
don't take credit for. I don't feel like, oh, look at me kind of thing, but it was like humbling and really just amazing, like yeah. And then there was a lady who was teaching me this, who could communicate with Sasquatch, like talk to them in a conversation back and forth. And I would take her up to the woods, and she was like a disabled lady and a smoker, and she had a cart, a little electric cart, and she would just go from her door to the house up to the sidewalk in the cart and never really walk around or whatever. But when I took her to the woods, she'd be up walking, stepping high, stepping over big fallen logs and stuff, and just acting like there was absolutely nothing wrong. And I did ask the Sasquatch people, specifically RE, to help her or whatever. And I mean, he really did. It was just like they were performing miracles for her out there, and it was like, wow, so gratifying. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, really, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're capable of that. Well, it was basically this lady gave me a few tips, but not really. It was unknowing because remember I said as a kid I can heal.
Hmm.
So I think that I just had you know, had done it before and maybe in past lives or something, or just had an innate knowing. I was just doing stuff the right way without actually any direction.
Mm.
Uh, what I would normally do was I would get a visualization of the person in my head, and then I would put a bubble of protection around them
Hmm.
and shoot inside of the bubble with kind of like white light energy or whatever, and just fill it with love, light energy, and then I would get a picture of what I wanted to work on if somebody had a specific thing, and I would just imagine that and imagine either knitting it together or sewing a wound or knitting does that make sense?
Yeah, like getting your needle
Putting it,
and
yeah,
stitching it up.
yeah, or putting the wires together or whatever, or uh, and then when I would find something that was an issue, I would have a door opened in the bubble and just send out anything that didn't serve that person or was a problem out of that door in the bubble and send it out with love because you can't fight hate with hate.
Yeah.
I think we found that out in the political arenas and all the stuff we're going through today. You can't It doesn't work. It's just a dog chasing its tail,
It's so true.
which is another big lesson that they've taught me, which I would have known anyway. Just like I said, when I was a kid, I just knew that stuff. But
Mm.
anyway, you send it out with love and then you lock the door and say you're not welcome back. I even cured somebody of some bad vaccine damage. The not
Oh
the
wow.
nasty
Hmm.
vaccine. I don't know.
This,
Can we talk about that, or is that a
s-
too touchy of a subject?
I think it's fine. I mean, yeah, why not? I don't think I've talked about it with anybody else, but if you'd like, go for it.
Okay, well, that knowing thing I talked about, and like that's my knowing. I'm not going to criticize or judge anybody if they got the back. The one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
I personally did, and I knew right away that there's not a open hell I'm getting that thing.
Mm.
I just know I'm not going to do it. So anyway, this same lady, Mary, who was actually lived in the basement suite below me. I was just renting a room at that time because I was waiting for my wife to be able to come to Canada so we could get married.
Mm.
She's an American, and so I was just living in a one room place at the time, just kind of in a waiting state. So I would talk to Mary and I say, we talk about stuff, and I said, I don't really like that vaccine. I hope you don't get it. And I told her my thoughts and whatever on it, and she agreed. But unfortunately, she was a lady who was on a low income, you know,
Mm.
supported by the government because she had a disability or whatever, and she couldn't really afford the place she was living in, which was right below me. She wanted to go into assisted living, but of course, the only way they were going to let her go into assisted living is if she got the shot, right?
Oh, okay.
You know, they coerce people would lose their jobs or whatever. They made it very
Hmm.
very difficult for people to resist, especially people uh, who depended on the government for something, right?
Right.
So I remember one day I hadn't seen her for about 2 weeks or something, which was unusual. And I was wondering why. Then all of a sudden, I saw her come out of her suite, and I was on the porch upstairs, and I saw her. I said, "Hi, Mary," and then she looked like she was crying. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I have to get the vaccine because they wouldn't let me move into this place if I didn't, and I didn't think you'd like me anymore."
Oh.
And I said, "Mary, of course I like you or whatever." And at this point, she was already teaching me how to do healing with my innate knowledge of it anyway. And I've
Mm,
already done some amazing things with her and a few other friends. So I said, "Mary, why don't you let me try to help you? I'll see if I could do something to it." Because what she told me is that she's a person who she could just have a conversation with Sasquatch. Like I feel her energy. They communicate with me and I get mind speak sometimes, but she also gets the visuals, and she could just have a just like instantly let's a regular conversation back and forth. So
mm,
she was very, 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 very evolved. And she told me that she could not hear her guides or any of the voices anymore. It was
mm,
completely shut off after she got the vaccine. And I've heard people say that was one of the side effects of it. I don't know if you've heard that, but that was one of the things that I heard uh, was a really bad side effect of it. And true enough, for sure enough, that's what happened to her. And so she could barely hear her guides at all. And I said, "Let me try to help you." So I went up and I did a remote viewing because it doesn't matter if you're in right there with the person or it's remote. Energy is
right.
energy. It doesn't matter where you are. So that night I went up to my room and I had a little crystal thing set up, a little what do you call that when you have them all set up in a pattern? Forgot the word now.
It's like a
Uh,
grid,
crystal
crystal grid.
grid, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't really think that that's necessary. It's just kind of a tool. I don't think they're really necessary, but I kind of like it and I like the energy behind them. And
Yeah.
so I just
I love
started,
crystals.
yeah. But I think you could be just as effective probably without them. Although, well, or you could be effective without them. Maybe they do enhance things. Debatable. But anyway, so then I kind of went through that process, the bubble of protection around her, visualized her, shooting her full of white light energy kind of thing. And I'm focusing on the vaccine and problems. So I'm feeling around in her energy body and I'm feeling hot spots, and that's where I feel that the problems are. So I start feeling these hot spots and I start grabbing them and just throwing them up the door there. And there's a whole bunch of them, right? And I'm dropping them really fast, and then all of a sudden, I feel like they're scattering, they're freaking out, they're trying to get away from me, right? And then I hear this screech in my head, this high pitched screech of consciousness from these things.
Mm,
Like they knew I was getting rid of them and chasing them or whatever, and they were scrambling and they were screaming. But anyway, I grab. I got them all as far as I'm concerned. Shot them out the bubble in the door, sent them off with love, closed it. And the next day I was talking to Mary and I'm telling her the story of what happened. And she felt everything that I was doing. She could feel it all.
yeah.
And when I told her about the screech, she said, "I wasn't going to tell you that because I didn't think you'd believe me," which I don't know why she said that. But anyway, she heard the same screech. She felt the same scrambling, but she also saw what I was picking out, which I didn't do because, there's all the kind of things like clairvoyant, or clairsentient, clair body, all these things. I have the knowing one, the energy one, but I don't have the visual one as much. It's not as developed as the others. But she does. And as I was picking them out, she said she could see these little black things that look like little caterpillars with little or centipedes
Oh,
with
okay.
little feelers on them or whatever.
Hmm.
And and then like I said, I got rid of them, and she was kind of scared because it was intense. But the Sasquatch told her, "It's all right, it's all right. They're just being killed." And the next the next day after that, and the day, the morning that I was talking to her, before I talked to her, she had like no other nice way of saying it, like this black tarry kind of diarrhea stuff.
Yeah.
And she could even kind of see little things in it or whatever. And she was purged of them all, right?
Mm,
And the beautiful thing is that her connection came right back. She could talk to her guides again, and the connection was very clear. So the lessons I learned from that is that there was some kind of consciousness with whatever they're putting in this, I call it poison, whatever they're putting in there, and that I wasn't going to listen to anybody who said that it was a good thing,
mm,
which I
yeah.
which I knew anyway.
Well, it's
So
so
that's that
important to
story.
listen. Yeah. It's so important to listen to your discernment and to listen to your gut when something is telling you that something's wrong, you know? Like I man, having lived through those years, that was just some of the most intensely confusing just it was a long kind of dark night of the soul for me, and I know a lot of people were in fear for a long time and still are, but yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like the fact that we are all one and we are all source, we are all creator energy. I don't really feel like there is anything that can tamp down our energy unless we kind of let them, whether through some sort of agreement or whether through like disempowerment or whatever. But I will tell you, I had a similar story. I had a similar thing happen to me where I think it was 2 years ago. I got the shot and the flu shot at the same time. Because I was trying to get a job and it was a similar situation. So I ended up getting it, and I got really sick afterwards. I had a really, really intense reaction towards the whatever it was. And I asked the elders to come in and to please give me a healing. And I got the most intense healing for about an hour and a half. Just my body is just like vibrating everything out. And I eventually passed out, woke up the next morning, drank like, a gallon of water, and yeah, just evacuated everything. And it was very similar. It was I had to purge a lot of stuff, but yeah, I definitely agree that there is a consciousness to everything, almost everything probably. And yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's all some sort of tinfoil hat paranoid delusion. I do feel like there are some nasty things out there. So,
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, I felt it, and I heard his consciousness or whatever. That was, like I said, that was one of the
yeah.
knowing I had. Like, this thing has consciousness, and it's not our friend.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. It was
so
amazing that the elders came in and the star people all came in and gathered around me, and I'm very thankful for that. That was they're amazing. When they decide to work with
yeah,
you, they can help you out in many ways. So,
okay.
I think I felt a bunch of energy come in earlier, so I think our buddies are joining us. I think it'll be okay though.
Yeah, when I talk to people or whatever, the Sasquatch are always with me or whatever, and yeah, they got a lot of energy, obviously. But yeah, you know, they they taught me a lot of lessons about judgment, division,
Mm,
stuff like that. I mean, we're and fear. We are being controlled by that. That's how we're being dummied down and kept in conflict, is because of
mhm,
all those things. And I keep telling people, and it just seems so common sense to me, that all these people are fighting with each other and trying to resolve things, but they're doing it with hate. To just, they're battling hate with hate, and it's just like a dog chasing its tail. There is no resolution in it. There is no resolution in not forgiving. You cannot move forward holding somebody accountable for the past. You've got to cut that. You got to say, okay, from this day forth, moving forward. Because when you're constantly blaming people and saying you did this, you did that, blah blah blah, there's no solution to that. There's no
I agree.
resolution. It's only done through love and you know moving on from that vicious cycle. And it just seem so common sense to you? It, when I say that to some people, it's just like, some people say, "Oh, you don't care," or whatever. You don't care, or you're living in fantasy land or something. But no, that's how it is. That's the only solution.
Yes, that's universal law. You can't fight fire with fire. It just makes more fire. It just perpetuates everything. And I remember when I first moved up here to the UP, and I live right off of Lake Superior, and I found out about this pipeline that a Canadian company called Enbridge is building, and they're trying to dig underneath the lake to build this pipeline for oil. And I was so horrified and angry, and I signed up to all the online groups, like, did sign sign all the stuff and do the protests and everything. And I feel like a large part of me had to work through a lot of my own victim consciousness and a lot of disempowerment to realize that doesn't, it doesn't work. And I understand how other people would feel that way, how they would just be like, "Oh, you don't care. You're just going to do your little love circle and pretend everything's fine." But I feel like that really is energetically how you change reality, is through the energy of love. You can't just fight things that you disagree with, because it just it perpetuates everything.
Yeah, the Sasquatch gave me a quote, one of a few that I think we should live by in that regard. It was called detached awareness with empathy slash love.
Mm,
And what it means is you detach yourself from the putting your energy into the things that trigger you and lower your vibration and keep you in that dog chasing a stale circle of hate, 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 hate. But awareness is being aware of what's wrong, what you don't agree with, or whatever, and
yeah,
acting on it, but not in a way that is hate and continues that vicious circle, like I said, and with empathy and love, because you can only battle hate and evil with love, to put it in a simple phrase. I mean, like, I feel very, very strong about things I believe in, and it's not like I don't care, but I'm not going to judge and put my energy into the thing that keeps us in that bad energy and that bad cycle. We can't do that. So you have to be detached energetically and yet be
mm,
aware. I feel like a warrior for some of these things. Like, I'm not, just because I'm not going out there fighting and whatever and stuff like that does not mean that I do not feel passionate about it. As far as personally, you're not going to make me do any of that stuff. So it's detached awareness with empathy and love. And that's
I love
that's the
that.
secret.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, because if you're so entrenched in the story, in the situation, you're not seeing the bigger picture, and you're not understanding that you are actually giving more power to that which you disagree with. The
Exactly.
more
Yeah.
yeah, the more you disagree with it, the more you fight against it. That is not, it's not, it just doesn't help. And I
It
mean, that's why
doesn't
we are
work.
where we are.
Like, I would ask people, and they'd look at me like I have three heads or whatever. But
Mm,
why, if you hate this so much and you're so passionate about it, put all your energy into it, why are you doing it this way? Because don't you know that you're just allowing it to continue? When two factions are clashing heads and not doing it in a detached awareness kind of way, there's no resolution. There's never
yeah.
going to be a resolution. So why do you not see that? It's amazing. I don't know. I don't want to say people are stupid, but they're just blind to that. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I,
Even friends that I've talked to and about this many, 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 many times,
mm,
they'll end up, oh yeah, I agree with you, and then they'll end up getting drunk or whatever one night and start saying that I don't care and I'm living in fantasy island and
yeah.
it's just like, okay, man, why are you not listening? To me, it's just like it's so simple.
It is, but we've always find a way of making everything so complicated and difficult. I mean, that's the game of life, right? It's the expansion and the contraction. I can feel so expanded and at one with everything around me 1 minute, and then I can turn around and all of a sudden, just
Yeah, 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 for sure.
yeah. And so I think it's just the more awareness that we gain, and the more we practice it too. Like, it seems like you've been practicing this for a while. I feel like it's kind of like riding a bike. You kind of understand your triggers and you understand the formula, and you're like, okay, now I'm in contraction, so let's loosen up, let's open everything up, and we can see from a higher perspective. But it takes, I mean, it takes
Takes
the
practice.
will to, yeah, it takes practice, and it takes the, like, you have to want to. Some people just like playing that game. Some people like being entrenched in the 3D, and just that's their sole purpose for being here. Who knows? I don't know.
It's kind of
But
thrilling and exciting to get so involved and like so mad in a cause or whatever. I mean, it is a stimulant.
oh yeah.
It does stimulate, and some people just like to argue and whatever, and it's just like they love it, but
Yeah.
that's not the way to go. And it is a work in progress. I think I'm getting gradually less and less and less and less, even though I've known it all through the different stages. I'm buying. I'm not buying into it. I'm buying into it lesser and lesser and lesser as things go along. Not letting the triggers, put me in that situation to lower my vibrations.
Right.
And there's always a positive to it. I mean, we can think of some of these diabolical people that we think are, doing horrible things in the world or whatever. But if they weren't doing that, thank you in a way, because you're waking me up.
Exactly.
You're giving us
Exactly.
an opportunity to grow and to say this is not right, right?
Yes. I so agree with that. Like, the guy who's in charge right now of my country, uh, I have spent years just giving myself an ulcer being so angry at this person and angry at these people and this side and this political party, and they're the ones who are screwing everything up, when in fact it's all us. We are all the same. We all have this within us. So if we refuse to look at ourselves, look at the dark sides that we reject and don't want to look at, if we don't look at that, nothing's going to change. And so what happens, we have to have something in our external to act as a catalyst. So we have these souls who come in and play the part of the bad guy or the good guy or whatever. And it's so easy to just stay in that contracted state and be like, F that guy, he's such a turd. I can't stand him. He's the one who's causing all the trouble. When in fact, it's such a catalyst for change. I mean, yes, everything looks like a
Yeah,
mess from our perspective, but if you can manage to zoom out a little bit and trust in Creator. I mean, come on. Do you think Creator knows better than us, like, how to run this planet? Yes, of course. And just because we can't see the plan, we don't get the blueprints, doesn't mean that it's not all happening for our highest good. And so I honestly, I'm these days, I'm kind of just grateful for everything. I'm learning how to be grateful for everything. I'm not perfect. Things still totally piss me off, but I can kind of get out of that a lot quicker these days. And I shouldn't talk so much because this is Brian Bland's
no, 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 no.
episode.
I like this. I like this because we're talking about the good stuff, right? No, no, please do. Well, let's have a conversation about how we should be grateful for the villains, because they open up our consciousness and let us know, like, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Uh, how can we change or whatever? Like personally, I think both. I think they're all equally at fault. I don't even favor one side over the other now. I think they're all a bunch of clowns,
Oh,
and I wish that, that they're like children in the sandbox, and it's just so low vibration and whatever that it's just like I don't really even pay attention to it. I
mm,
don't pay. I mean, every time I go on the computer, you're seeing something or whatever, but I do not put my energy into it. I just, because I believe that good things are coming and that changes are coming, and we're going to transcend or change or whatever. And part of that is by not putting your energy into those bad things. You have to
yes.
let that stuff go. So that's what I do.
It's kind of like you said, is with anger and other uh kind of not helpful, I don't know, distracting sort of emotional states. They're addictive sometimes, and so you get addicted to checking the news every day and seeing, oh, what's the daily horror today, like what's the
Yeah,
newest atrocity, and it's like, does that help your day-to-day life? Does it affect your day-to-day life? Does it help? Does it hinder? Does it make you feel like crap? If it does, maybe you should not look at the news as much. And I feel like that translates over to the body as well. All the aches and pains that you develop, and the headaches, and these are triggers, and triggers are not good or bad or any, they're signals telling you that there's a message in the body, like you need to listen. And it's the same with all this stuff that's going on the on the external. Like these people are messages, they're signals stating that something needs to change. Like we're not happy with how things are, so things need to change, as within, so without. And like I said,
Yeah,
I'm so grateful to be able to witness all of this stuff. There's so much.
yeah. But like I said, the awareness part is important too, because like I'm sure you probably have a warrior spirit about some of this stuff, but you
Oh
just
yeah.
don't want to put your energy. You just don't want to put your energy into it
Hmm.
because you know that's not the solution. So
Yeah.
that's where people don't. That's where when somebody says you don't care, or whatever, they're not understanding that part. I probably care more than they do in some ways.
It's this, how do we use our sacred rage? That's kind of what I've been thinking a lot about lately. How do we utilize this into a positive um force to help change things into a positive direction instead of just disempowering ourselves. And because that's what I always used to do that before, just like look at a situation and be like, well,
Well,
this really makes me mad, but there's nothing I can do, so well, who cares, like I can't change anything.
well, that
Like how do you,
that's a big lie that they want us to think. We're much more powerful than we. What can I do? What they
right?
don't realize. One of the lessons the Sasquatch taught me, uh, kind of like in a vision, or like they put it in my mind. Like they'll place thoughts in my mind. Like I call them thought placement, that lead
Mm,
to like big lessons and stuff. And just it's like school, going to school or whatever. And one of them is that every thought and action that we have affects us and affects the collective as a whole. And they gave me kind of like a vision in my head, or whatever you say, or just like just a thought. Um, that was a lesson or whatever, and it was of a great big spider's web, huge spider's web, and they showed me that every strand in that spider's web, like say I'm one of the strands on the spider's web or whatever, and the spider's web represents the universe and the collective. Every thought and action that I have vibrates my little strand, but guess what? It vibrates them all. It affects them all.
mm,
So every thought and action that we have affects ourselves and affects the collective, and that's the best work that we can do. Be positive, be high vibration, uh, think loving thoughts. Don't get into these arguments and fight with everybody. Just stay above that. And when
yeah.
you're in that state too, there's no fear too, right? Which is another big control factor. So it's all good. So that's the kind of stuff that they show me at times, like that universal spider's web that everything is affected by each individual strand on that web. So and you can obviously understand that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful image that I'm getting in my mind of just this, these frequencies and vibrations that ripple
Well,
out.
put it this way: if my strand is vibrating with love and high vibration, or if it's vibrating with anger and hate, and it affects the entire thing, which one do you want? Which one do you think is going to be better, right?
I feel much better when I hang out with people who kind of have the ability to, emanate the love frequency. You just naturally want to be around those people, or at least I do. So I think you're so right. That's probably the most important thing you can do is protect your energy in, not as in like oh, I got to shield up and all this stuff, but like keep your energy high and positive and loving and try to forgive as much as you can. I found that forgiveness has more than anything else completely changed my life, especially in regards to my family. It's been just
Yeah,
paradigm shifting for me lately.
yeah. And forgiving yourself is the hardest of all. I've also had
Oh yeah, right.
lessons there where they've shown me where I've looked at myself from a detached point of view,
Mm,
looking at all the things that I felt guilty about, and had guilt for, or whatever. And I was just watching it from a detached point of view. And that's how you have to kind of do it and forgive yourself. It's the same kind
mm,
of thing. And
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it's just that the world today is trigger after trigger after trigger. And it's not a coincidence. A lot of it's by design, because the more we're fighting and the more our vibrations are low or whatever, the easier we are to control.
Yeah.
If we have the freedom, like when the Sasquatch took away my fear or whatever, which I asked him to do one night when I went to the woods, and it was just like bang, it was gone. I felt I felt free.
Hmm.
I felt like I couldn't be touched. Um, you know, without fear.
Could you go into that story? Because I had a similar experience and I've never heard anyone else talk about that.
Well, it had to do with my wife was in the United States. I was in Canada. We couldn't cross the border. It was during the COVID time, and neither of us were going for no reason for nothing. There was no way, even if we couldn't be together, if it worked out like that, which obviously it didn't. We were not going to get that shot. I was dead set against it. I just no, I'm not doing that. For one thing, it's that awareness, that warrior spirit. I know
Yeah.
what's so I'm thinking I know what's wrong, and I'm not going to do it, no matter what. So that's people say you're detached, you don't care. Well, that's an example that you do. You can develop a real warrior spirit, but you don't have to do it with hate, right? So anyway, but I had one thing that I was a little fearful of is the fact that, like I said, we weren't gonna get the vaccine, and we were thinking, are we ever going to be able to be together? So that was the only thing that was kind of I was fearful about. So I decided to go to and I was already well on my way to these lessons about all the stuff we're talking about now.
Hmm.
Not putting your energy into things, not listening to the news, not not doing any of that stupid stuff. So, like I said, I was scared that maybe we weren't going to be together, and I just went to the woods one night and I said, "Guys, I need your help. Take this fear away about Sue and I not being together or whatever." And it was just like a light switch went on. It just they just did it immediately.
Hmm. That's
It's
awesome.
it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to explain unless you've experienced it, kind of thing. But you just know it's very dramatic. It's like energy or whatever, and it's just you just feel it, right?
Yeah. Um, when it happened to me, I was in a cabin in in a national forest in Oregon last October, and I was trying to sleep, and I started hearing these big footsteps around the cabin, and I knew who it was, but I didn't know if they wanted me around. I wasn't familiar with that group, and so I just felt this instinctive fear come up within me, and uh, they came so close to the window that I was sleeping underneath. They were like 5 feet away, and it was just the energy was so much, and I just kept saying in my mind, I was like, "Can you guys please back up? You're really freaking me out. Uh, your energy is so much. I'm really scared." And I felt all of this fear that was in my chest get sucked up out of the top of my head, and then I was fine. It was like it was completely gone.
Yeah, if you're afraid or whatever or something, you can just ask them to. They can actually send you an energy to make you calm down and be not be in fear,
Oh, okay.
because there's such energy workers and so evolved in all the applications and understandings of energy that they can make you from a in a split second from a fear like you were to completely calm and okay with it. I've
Mhm.
heard lots of examples of that, and I can't say I was ever afraid of them, but I know for sure that they can do that. And your story is just another one of those confirmations. Like I had a friend who I introduced him to. I just went up and I took him in the woods one time, and I just walked forward and I said, "Hey, this is my friend. I'd like you to meet him. It's about respect, because they like it when you show them respect or whatever, and treat them like
Yeah.
just regular people." I said,
Mhm.
I'd like you to meet him, and he's a good guy, and take care of him or something." So he went out hiking a solo hike on his own about a week later, way deep in the woods. And you could hear them talking back and forth, like, back and forth, like somewhere close to by where he was. And he uh, he was scared, or because he's all by himself, completely pitch black, and there's not another human anywhere around. And then there were two owls that came and were talking, or were communicating right on the tree just above them, and that has something to do with Sasquatch too, because they can shapeshift into anything they want. Even
Mm.
human beings, I can tell you about. a couple
Oh yeah.
stories about that will
Yeah.
fascinate you. But anyway, he was in fear, and then all of a sudden he said he felt this energy come over him that they gave him, where they took his fear away. So that's another example of that. So they're definitely capable of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it just felt so good. It was I just fell right back asleep after that. And I was like, "Oh, thanks, guys." Just passed out. Yeah. Could you tell me some stories about the, human shape-shifting? Because, I have talked to Ashley Stinnett several times, and she's big into that subject. She's been experiencing a lot of that stuff over at Mount Tabor in Portland.
Yeah, I know Ashley.
Okay.
I know Barb. I
I
know,
love
I've been,
Ashley.
yeah, she's great. We're buddies. Um, I mean, I've been, on doing my show. I mean, they've all been on my show too. So, and I've
Mm,
met pretty much all of them. I've met, obviously Arla, Tom, and I've got a long history, as does Arla, Sam, Chandler,
yeah,
Bart, Shoup, um, Ashley, all of those people.
good people.
So, yeah. So this is a really interesting story. There's another part to it too. So I may as well give you the whole thing. So I was going around in the campground finding all these structures, and I find them all the time. And I'm not going to say, this is where Sherman comes in. Sometimes when you find structures, they're made by people. Not every structure is Sasquatch made, but I guarantee you they make a lot of them, and they do make them. There's no question about that. But anyway, I was finding these structures one day, and actually I never had a problem finding them because I was very active area. They're all over the place. But looking at these structures is more appropriate. And I was finding these little painted rocks that were put on the structures and stuff.
Mm,
And the Sasquatch will utilize anything that they can find for people or whatever, and they'll place things or gifts, different reasons or whatever. But also, I know that painted rocks are something that kids do when they're camping. That's one of the things they do. They paint rocks and stuff, right?
yeah.
So there were some suspicious circumstances surrounding some of the rocks where I thought, I think the Sasquatch are doing some of this. But my discernment kicked in, and I said, yeah, I wonder. But I remember making a video on my YouTube channel, and I said, I'm not sure if they put these ones here or whatever, but or they do this, even though it pretty much was. I always try to go on the side of discernment, but I said I'm pretty sure I'm going to find out the answer. And I remember putting that on the video. About 2 weeks later, I'm camping. I went to a site with a guy in the woods, and this guy's got a really good connection with Sasquatch too. And as soon as we walked out of the truck, we could both feel the energy of the Sasquatch really strong. That's one of my strongest things with them is energy. Uh, like that's one of the biggest communication tools that they have. Um, and quite often it's just a confirmation, like, yes, you're talking about something we really are passionate about. They'll just light me up with energy. That's one example of it, but there's countless. But anyway, we got out of our truck and we both felt this energy really strong. All of a sudden, this guy was pulled over to the stump. He had a feeling he had to go over to this stump that was on the perimeter of the campsite. And they hang around campsites because they like watching people, because
Yeah.
people are having fun. People are having fun with their camping, and they're in a high energy, they're high vibration. And when you meet them on their high vibration, you're on a high vibration, and you can kind of meet them closer to the middle or whatever. That's when you're going to have your experiences with them. So
Mm,
that's got something to do with it. So anyway, this guy, he walks over to this stump. And he reaches in and he pulls out a rock, and he gets a mind speak in his head. No, not this one. So he puts it back. He walks over to the other side of the stump. He pulls out another rock. This one is a painted rock. And not only is it a painted rock, it's painted orange, which is my favorite color. And it's the subtle little clues that because they know you so intimately. They know you're like in and out, inside and out. It's the subtle little clues that give you the answer, definitely. But I was asking, do you do this with the rocks? And that was definitely my answer. 100% that was my answer. Like painted rock, an orange rock. I knew, yes, we do that, even though I kind of knew anyway. So anyway, so that was part of it. And I just appreciate how thorough they are with their lessons. Like they teach us so many things. We'll talk about time and whatever too in a bit, or linear time and stuff. But anyway, so after that lesson, and I got my answer to my question from a few weeks back about the painted rocks. We were still feeling the energy extremely strong. All of a sudden, we both heard like a wood knock up on the hill, way up on the slope. Uh, and the terrain where we heard this wood knock is really, really spongy, mossy, uneven ground with a bunch of trees strewn and, you know, all over the place. And a person, the most athletic person at best, could just gingerly walk over these things and kind of, maneuver his way, right?
Sure.
There's no way you're going to be running it with a up there. It's humanly impossible. But as soon as we heard this wood knock, we saw what looked like a kid, just a regular kid. He looked at us, dropped the stick, and started running out along the top of this terrain or the slope, not the very top, but near the top, on the side. Like I said, mossy, spongy, impossible to run. And he was running like Carl Lewis. He just went across there like you have never seen anybody run that fast in your life. And that's
Wow.
humanly impossible. Humanly impossible. So that was definitely a shapeshifter. And then a few weeks later, I'm talking to a friend of mine, Kevin Royce, and he had a shape shifting Sasquatch into humans too, or whatever. That was just phenomenal. And it's a long story, so I won't really get into it. But basically, when the female walked by him, she gave him the scent of the floral arrangement or whatever that the Sasquatch have, like really, really strong. And
Yeah.
so that was just more proof, right? And plus, there was a lot more to that story. But there's no doubting they can shapeshift into ravens, humans, owls, deer, just all, just basically just about anything, right? I hope I explained that well, but there's no, you know, the Kevin story was undoubtedly shapeshifted into humans, and the one that I saw, that guy with the knocking on the tree,
Hmm.
100% too, because literally it was humanly impossible for anybody to be doing what that individual did. Couldn't happen.
I'll tell you the story. So it was in the summertime, and there's wetlands that I go to pretty frequently with my dogs. And this is where I had the very first prints that I started seeing in the wintertime. It's very remote. It's not a hard place to get to, but there's not a lot of people who live around there. And especially in the wintertime, not many people go. And so in the winter, I started seeing these little teeny tiny little footprints, and it would be like 3 or 4 of them and then nothing for half a mile, and then a couple more footprints and then nothing. And I didn't even know what to think about that. I had no idea that the forest people had children. I didn't know anything about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, anything. I had no idea. So I just started seeing these footprints and I'm like, this is very bizarre. I don't know what to make of this. And then the summer rolls around and I think it was June or July. And it was about 90 degrees, which is really hot for up here. And I was in, tank top, shorts, walking around in the woods with my dogs. And I was on this logging road. While I'm walking on the logging road with my 3 dogs, I turn around and I ask one of them, he's older and he was lagging behind. I was like, Ducky, come on, hurry up. And as I turned around, I heard in my mind, stop, watch. And so I was like, okay, I will. And so I just kept looking at the road, and out from the woods walks this large, I would say 6.5, 7 foot tall, completely black humanoid shape across the logging road and into the other side of the woods. And my first thought was, that's odd. Why would someone be wearing a snowmobile suit with a ski cap in the summertime? Like, it's so hot. This is crazy. Why would anybody, now I know who it was. But at the time, I couldn't even really understand anything about the encounter. I was like, that is the weirdest thing. And so I turned around, kept going with my dogs around this, it's like this dune sort of area. Anyway, so I'm walking and it's, like I said, like 90 degrees, boiling hot outside. I'm in the sand and just like in bugs and all this, it's like it was very hot. Anyway, so I'm walking and I see this person walk towards me in like down these sandy dune trails. And it's a woman who is dressed in like a polo shirt with a sweatshirt over it, and then long khaki, sort of pleated in the front pants and shoes, and just dressed so oddly. And I was like, you look like you're from the 80s and you're so overdressed right now. I don't understand what's going on. But I said hello to them, and just the way that they responded was so strange, and what they said to me was, it just phrased so weirdly. I was just like, that was the weirdest encounter. What is up with that? And now I know that it was like, oh, I saw one of my Sasquatch buds walk across the road, and then I probably saw another one come towards me down the trail. But I didn't really know what to think of it until I was talking to Ashley, and she was like, that sounds very suspicious to me. That sounds like it was
Yeah.
probably a shapeshifter event. So that was my story.
Yeah, there was another one. I've had a few other ones that were not quite as definitive, but
Mm.
yeah, the people looked weird and they acted weird and they were doing weird stuff. Like
Yes.
my friends and I were hiking up this great big huge hill in the mountains, and all of a sudden we see this old couple, this woman who was like 10 years older than me, probably, and her husband, and they're gaining on us. They're coming up way faster than us, and we noticed they said they were going on a really long hike
Mm.
around the entire perimeter of the area or whatever, and they didn't have a backpack or water or anything, and they were kind of like weird the way they were acting too. So that was
Hmm.
another one that I thought, like there's no way this woman could have just, you know,
Just
there's not
book
an
it.
81-year-old woman that's going to be out walking. Like I'm 71 now, but I wasn't as old then, and my friends were younger than that. It's not going to happen. But she was just like catching us like we were standing still or
Weird.
something. Yeah, and that, that's just one example, but and the other thing about if you want to get into shape shifting or whatever, sometimes the Sasquatch they will either look through the eyes of animals or perhaps they're shape shifting into them. But I've had many examples where I'll have a thought about the Sasquatch and something like, geez, I wonder if they did this, or I wonder if it's like this. And as soon as I have that thought, I don't see a raven all day, whatever. There's a
Hmm.
raven right directly over my head. As soon as I have a thought, needs just one single call,
Hmm.
like like confirmation call. That kind of stuff happens all the time. It's just there's no coincidence to it. You just know, right?
So you wanted to talk about time.
Oh, they gave me a lot of lessons on time. Um, time is not linear for them. Linear time is actually an invention of man
Hmm.
for the purpose of points of reference or whatever. Like
Yeah.
when I had my love zap and I felt like I was on the other side or wherever, or I had that other side awareness. Because actually when people have near death experiences and come back and whatever and talk about them, I practically had all of those feelings that they're talking about, unconditional love and all this in that love zap. And one of
Yeah.
the other things that I realized is that there's no time. It, time is there is no time on the other side. Or the Sasquatch are of such a high vibration or whatever that there's really no time for them. That's how they can set up kind of like a breadcrumb trail of discovery for you because you know they can do it in a different kind of time or whatever. It's kind of hard to explain. For instance, I know there was a lady that I really respect who's got a very fantastic connection with Sasquatch. One time they took her someplace and they were at a concert, and everybody in that concert was completely frozen still or whatever, like Star Trek, like not moving or whatever. And she was able to move all around them or whatever.
Hmm.
And then when they came out of it, they didn't realize any of that. They didn't have any recollection of that. And many times I've been in the woods where I walked in an area and it seems like 15 minutes going in and then 5 minutes going out or whatever. And that's how they can set up a breadcrumb trail of discovery for you, like I said, because, well, for one thing, they already know what you're thinking before you think it.
Hmm.
The other thing is, the time factor. I mean, I've had glyphs, my understanding of glyphs or whatever, my meaning for them. When I started coming up with some of the new meanings or whatever, I would look back, I would document my glyphs. I got thousands and literally tens of thousands of pictures of them. And I'd be doing a video or something and looking at some of my old glyphs. And there were some symbols in there that at the time I took them, I did not know what they meant. But then when I look back at them, some even 5 years later, there was meanings that I came up with a lot, a long time after the fact, that they had woven in a perfectly cohesive message with other glyphs that told me without question. It's kind of hard to explain, but without question that they already knew the meaning I had for them. Sometimes years before I even came up with it. So like time is not linear for them. Like you've heard of like a fully enlightened man or whatever or something like. Mike Hurrell actually told me a story of this, and they can look at you. Some of these people, if they have that ability, I guess we all have different abilities, but this is one that is accessible. Oh, by the way, all these abilities that the Sasquatch people have, we also have. We just kind of forgotten them. And
Yeah.
when you get connected with them, they start reoccurring. Some of them, like I've experienced stuff like that. But anyway, so Mike had this experience with a fully enlightened man, and he could look at you, and he would know the day you were born, every significant part of your life, when you got married, when you're going to die. Just by looking at you, you could see that whole thing. And
Wow.
that's the linear time thing. And that's the other thing that the Sasquatch have the ability to do. And that's why when people say they know us so intimately in and out, they really do, because they have those abilities, right?
They can know us on so many different levels.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Wow.
that glyph thing was amazing. Um, like for instance, I came up with that one day. I just said, okay, the Y stick means man, Sasquatch connected. The two prongs are man, Sasquatch. Sometimes one will be a little longer than the other. This is my meaning. And the shaft will be connected. So man, Sasquatch connected. But for many years, I knew what a lot of the symbols meant for me, but I never really thought about the why too much, even though I had seen it a lot. So one day I was going back looking for a photograph to put into a video I was making about Sue and I and our connection glyph, which kind of looks like the fish glyph, you
Mm,
know, the fish glyph shape,
yeah.
and the little ends are crossed over at the end. And I was looking for that because I was doing a video on her and I. And when I looked at it, I saw that into that fish there was woven a little Y, perfect little Y. And what that meant, the fish was my connection glyph with Sue. Sue and I are connected. So when I looked at it, the Y was woven into it on one side. It just kind of like this, and the Y came in like this. And I didn't really know what it meant at first. But what it means is man, Sasquatch are connected. You and Sue are connected, and we are all connected. You see how how cohesive is it, or how the message just it's undeniable. They knew
Yeah.
they knew that I was going to know what that Y stick meant, and as a matter of fact, I saw a bunch of other glyphs that had the Y in there too, that were equally as compelling because the message was so. I'm trying to think of the right word. It just fit. It just fit the overall message of everything. It was a cohesive message, I guess you could say. So yeah, so linear time, right?
Exactly. It's funny that you mentioned the Y shape because that was the image that was in my mind when I told you I've had similar experiences. Last summer I had been seeing the Y sticks everywhere in my backyard, in the woods, all over the place. And I asked myself, I had no idea what any of this meant. I know what glyphs are, but I had no idea that they had different meanings for different people or, anything like that. But I just kept seeing this same shaped stick all over the place. And it got to be so prevalent that I finally was like, okay, guys, what does this mean? And then I got from fractured to wholeness, which I think really does correlate with your message. Sasquatch and man are connected. We are all connected. And we're coming from a state of fragmentation into wholeness. So I think it's
Yeah, it's very similar, but like I said, it doesn't have to mean the same for you.
right. But that was the
But
knowing that I got. It was like a whole
yeah,
package of information just got dropped into me. And I was like, oh, okay. That's what it means.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They got so many incredible abilities, and they can even enter your dreams. I've had them
Oh yeah.
answer. Oh, that was another thing about the shape shifting into a
Mm.
human. So I'm if you don't have discernment, then you kind of lose yourself. You kind of have to have discernment, even with all this magic going on around you. You still have to. You can't just say everything's fairies and blah blah blah. You have to have some discernment, so to speak. So I remember, I think it was shortly after maybe Kevin told me his story of the shape shifting family. It was actually a family. The whole family shape shifted into Sasquatch. I mean, the
Mm.
Sasquatch shape shifted into human family. I mean, and I remember going to bed one night thinking, really, they, because I'm always questioning. It's the discernment thing that you kind of, even though they show you more when you have trust, they definitely show you more when you have trust. I still think discernment to a certain point is good. Otherwise, like you just get
Oh
totally
yeah.
lost.
Yeah. I
So,
agree.
it's a fine. It's kind of like a fine balance. But anyway, and I had already had a bunch of Sasquatch dreams before that, and you just know that they're not regular dreams. They feel completely different. They're actually in your dream. So I went to bed thinking, yeah, you really shapeshift into humans, blah blah blah. I was thinking that. I had a dream that night, and I saw a Sasquatch walking across in front of my face, and I think there was like a woods backdrop or whatever, kind of almost like the Patterson film, except it was walking from right to left,
Hmm.
and it kind of walked by me and looked at me, walked on a few more feet, and then it shapeshifted into a human.
Yep. That was
So
confirmation.
they were showing giving my answer, right?
Yeah. I love that. I love it when they come into my dreams. They're so I love the experience of it.
Have you
It's
ever
really
had any
cool.
profound lessons or whatever when they did that? What kind of? Do you want to tell me one of your best dreams you had?
um yeah. So I had this was very early, maybe like my third or fourth interview or something, and I had interviewed Mike Patterson from Sasquatch, Ontario, and um I didn't, I didn't really know him at all, but we it was a good interview. But anyway, um while I was doing the interview, I could see in his apartment orbs flying around behind him, and I mentioned that to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's all the time." And and I kept seeing like these little lights shooting by and stuff like that, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then that night, I had a dream where I was in a room, and then all of a sudden, a Sasquatch came into the room, but through the ceiling, and he was upside down, and he just kind of came down out of the ceiling, and our heads were like this, and we were just talking, and we had a long conversation about, I can't remember what it was about, but it seemed like we were talking for a very long time, and it was really intense. And I came out of the dream, and I was like, wow, that was weird. Okay. And at the same time, I had gotten a little figurine of a Sasquatch made out of a stone. I had gotten it that week, and it was up on a shelf in the room that I did the interview in, and it was missing, and it went missing for weeks. And I didn't find it again until I was doing some laundry in my laundry room, which was on another side of the house, and I found it wadded up in a bunch of dirty laundry. And I was like, that's really odd. No one's touched that at all. That was really weird. But I had some strange experiences for a few days after that interview. But that dream I didn't remember too much. But there was another dream where so I'm connected to a family group out here, and the main guy who contacted me, his name is Cole, and I don't usually have a lot of like physical interactions with him, but he will come into my dreams, and I'll get telepathic messages from him. I do have more contact with the juveniles, but but anyway, he came into a dream. When was this? A couple of years ago. But he was just telling me about how, and this was like, I think he was giving me a lesson on how energy works in the body, especially when you store negative emotions like regret and
Right.
sadness, anger, stuff like that. And he was telling me, he was like, regret gets stored in the cartilage and in the joints, and that can cause things like arthritis. And he was showing me like pictures of like this energy going into the fascia and going into the cartilage and stuff, and just like causing inflammation. And it was just this long lesson about how important it is to transmute density in your body, because that's kind of what is a huge influence on things that cause illness in you. Like everything starts from thoughts and goes into energy and then eventually kind of sinks into the etheric body and then the physical body. So
Wow,
that's what
what
he
a
taught
powerful
me.
lesson there.
Yeah, it was pretty
That's a
cool.
fantastic lesson. Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic lesson. So yeah, it's like, I mean, I could talk about so many things. I could say RV came into my room one time. He
Mm.
appeared one time. I was just laying in bed, just laid down. Wasn't even in the semi sleep state. I literally just laid down, and all of a sudden, I saw a big white puff of smoke came into my
Oh.
room, like a cloud of smoke or something.
Hmm.
And his image, his head, his huge head, and it was life size, and his shoulders materialized, became clear out of that smoke, his image or whatever, and he just
Yeah.
looked at me for maybe 5 seconds and then just dissipated. Once again, I never get scared from him. I just think, well, that was cool. You know, it's
Wow.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, it just appeared out of a cloud of smoke. Another time I was laying in bed, the same kind of thing. And this one was kind of funny. I saw, the old reel to reel um, movies where they, with the perforated edges and whatever, like the slides and the old movie projectors with
Hmm.
the big
Yeah.
reel of film, and
Hmm.
each little there was a bunch of different slides on them, and each one had perforated kind of edges separating them or whatever.
Yep.
I saw an image of that playing right in front of my face, like just well in front of the bed or whatever, with the perforated edges and everything. It looked like a movie reel playing, like a vision, and it was just a Sasquatch walking, very much like, well, again, like the Patterson film, in front of a backdrop of forest or whatever, and once again looked at me or whatever, and that was another kind of neat one.
It's so the one that you just mentioned with the smoke in the room, oh my gosh, it so reminds me of this time that I don't usually take photos, like ask them to show up in photos. I've only done it a few times. But there was one time where I was out in the woods, I could feel them, and like the day before I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were having a conversation about the book The Psychic Sasquatch by Kawani Lapsaritis. We were having a
Yeah,
conversation about this book. And so the day after, I was out in the woods and I could feel them around. And I was like, hey, if you guys feel like showing up in a picture, I'm going to take some pictures now. And I was playing with my dogs, having a good time. I just took some nice photos of my dogs. And then I looked at the photos later, and there was I saw something in one of the photos, and I kind of zoomed in, and I saw an astral image I of the cover of Psychic Sasquatch. It's so funny. It's like the exact same image that was just like they can project whatever they want, and they can manipulate
absolutely.
electronics and photographs and
Yeah,
everything. And I've had photos disappear and then reappear, and just
yeah,
they're so fun.
me too. I've had
It's so
photos take. I've had photos taken off my camera. As a matter of fact, it was a subject, I guess, that they didn't want my wife and I to see, or pictures or whatever. They took the same photo or the same picture or the same. We took a picture of the same thing, I should say, off both of our cameras. Um, I've seen them at like psychedelic pictures on the camera that we didn't take.
mm.
I've seen them where they're showing up in pictures after the picture was taken, like they could just show up after the fact. Just it's your imagination is the limit of your imagination is what they can do. I mean, yeah, they can do all of that stuff.
And just like how they can pick certain images out of your brain and then put it in a photograph. It just goes to show how well they know us, and that they can read us like a book. We're
Yeah,
just, you
yeah.
know.
Talk about linear time or whatever. There was a lady that went to one of my camp outs, and she was with the BFRO for a while, but she left them because she wanted to get more into the spiritual side and delve a little deeper. She wasn't just into the evidence and stuff. So she came to my camp out, and they left a beautiful cliff in front of her her camper, I guess. And because I knew what it meant, at least I knew what it meant for me. I could tell her, well, that's them welcoming you, friendship kind of welcome or whatever, and greeting you. And we started talking, and this is just a beautiful story. And she told me they gave me a download, I think is what she said, or a vision, or she saw it in her, she felt it energetically. And she said what they did is they gave her this identical feeling of the first time she kissed a boy when she was a teenager. She only had that one time in her life. You know, you only feel that once, the first time you kiss a boy, whatever. And it's kind of like, or in my case, a girl.
Mm,
And, it's a unique feeling that, you only have once for the first time kind of thing.
yeah.
And they put that exact feeling into her, and it was undeniable, and she knew, right? So they went into the recesses of her mind from, like, she was a lady my age, at least 50 years prior, and brought out that one feeling that was undeniable, and would give her the answer of, you know, what they're capable of or whatever, and just amaze her. She was just amazed,
I
so
love that.
that's beautiful, isn't it?
Yes. It's like our brain's like a little Rolodex, like the old fashioned kind with all the cards, and they can just go in and
Well, like I said, they can see the past. I mean, they can see the past, present, future, and every moment of your life if they want to. And so they picked out something that would be undeniable for her, that she couldn't deny, that she only experienced once and was dramatic, and gave her that feeling again. And that's just how they are, right? But there were two times when I was on my back porch looking out into the mountains. This is when I lived in Maple Ridge, British Columbia. I now live in Cruston, and I kind of miss my clan there, but just the cost of buying a house or whatever is just so much cheaper in this new place, and it is beautiful. And I still feel them and connected to them energetically anyway, so it's not the end of the world. But I had two really similar and unusual experiences, and I'm not going to say that it happened like I saw it in my mind's eye or whatever, or it was like I was actually there. I was just looking into the mountains. All of a sudden, I was transported to another place. I saw myself in another place, and it wasn't. I don't know if it was a vision. I don't know how to describe it, except that I was suddenly there. And what I saw the first time was I was sitting at a white sterile desk with white sterile tables and walls. It was a very white sterile kind of environment, and I had a knowing. I had an absolute knowing. And what it was is I was there with a friend of mine that I do know on this lifetime, and we were both there. And what we were doing is we were planning our incarnation, this lifetime, which is a very important lifetime, as we can all see. So when they say that you plan the experiences and everything that you want to go undergo in your life, that you plan in free life or whatever, I was there. I saw that planning session. I was actually there doing that, and it was an
wow.
absolute knowing, and it was pretty cool. So, it's kind of don't fear death when you experience something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it helps take the edge off at least.
yeah. And the other one and this is a weird one. Uh, that was an absolute knowing too. The same thing. I was just taken there. I saw a praying mantis being, and I could see the
Okay.
big limbs like moving or whatever in the legs. And there was another praying mantis being beside me, or whatever that I knew, and it was me.
Yep.
I
Yep.
was the praying mantis being. So they were
Hmm.
showing me, something else there, about possibilities of different lifetimes, or actually, because there's no linear time. I think that's all going on at the same time anyway,
Yeah.
just in different dimensions
Definitely.
or different realities or whatever. But it's funny because one of the ladies that I really love, that just a good friend of my wife and I, um, gave me I wouldn't call it a reading, but she was contacting my entourage. You know what that is? Like, kind of like spirit guides or whatever, kind of a similar thing.
Your team.
Yeah, my team. And, we're friends, so she did it for nothing for me. Plus, I paid for the camp out, so I guess it was trade off.
There you go.
But anyway, I was asking her about my entourage. He said one of them was a Sasquatch, was the main guy, and the two main one, and the second one was a praying mantis being. Okay,
Yep.
and so they gave me like names, like English names or whatever that I could understand or whatever. And I asked her. I said her name was Laurel Lehman, So as she was giving me the names and telling me a little bit about them and their personalities or whatever, I asked her, can you ask the praying mantis being what his real name was? And what came out of her mouth was this insect talk voice that was
Yep.
absolutely impossible for a human vocal cords to replicate. It was like, whoa, even she was
Mm,
kind of like shocked, but it was like an insect language that just absolutely blew my mind. And it was just like, wow,
yeah.
wow, 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 and so it just shows you how wonderful and deep, amazing this world is, and that we're just kind of scratching the surface, and we're very lucky to be able to experience it and be taught by great masters and have knowledge of this stuff and be thought of enough because of our hearts or whatever or our connection to them to bestow these wonderful gifts and lessons on us. And it's amazing. It's amazing, and I'm very
It is
grateful. Right?
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. It's funny that you mentioned the mantis beings because I have an aspect who is a mantis. He is a master geneticist, and I've heard he's resides in the 10th dimension, but I've been able to contact this aspect of myself and ask him for healings, and I've been able to get healings from this being. So it's funny that you mentioned that because I don't get that a lot from other people, but yeah, I
Maybe,
love the
maybe we're
insect
maybe,
beings.
maybe we're mantis buddies.
Yeah, maybe we're cousins, who knows.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
pretty funny.
gosh. Well, this is awesome. And I really like I should probably go make dinner actually. I have a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
That's
doing
fine. I'm getting hungry too. We'll do another one
yeah,
or whatever.
we'll definitely do
You
another
know what?
one. I'm
Actually, you know what? I want to have you on
what
my show. Would you
Oh,
come
I'd
on my
love to.
podcast?
Heck yeah, that'd be so fun. I would totally do
Okay,
it.
sometime in
I have
February because I booked them a little bit ahead.
okay. Yeah, I have
You'd be fantastic on it, and it'll be very much like this show, except you'll be able to talk even more.
and the pressure will be off. I won't have to ask the questions. So yeah,
Yeah,
I would love to.